I'm exposing two e-commerce brands today, both in very similar niches, but the only difference is one brand does only $20,000 per month in revenue from Google Ads alone, whereas this other brand does no less than $200,000 per month in revenue. And not only will this give you a good idea of where most brands go wrong with Google, but it will also show you what is the best approach to scale your own brand beyond 6 and 7 figures per month in revenue from Google Ads alone. But with that, the first brand right here is this brand, which is in the fashion industry, doing roughly $20,000 per month in revenue. As you can see, we're looking at the last 30 days. It has spent 5,200 pounds to make back roughly 19,053 pounds, which is a little over 20 to 21,000 USD. But overall, it's not doing bad at all. The return on ad spend is a 3.62x, not the best. However, it is slowly just getting by. And the unfortunate thing about this brand is just a few months ago, this same exact brand was doing much more in revenue from Google Ads alone. As you can see, it had been doing roughly 70, 80, 90, even 100,000 pounds a month in total revenue. So it has gone back quite a bit in terms of the overall revenue numbers, but that's just the unfortunate thing of what happens when you work with the wrong team, which, by the way, this brand used to work with us under our Google Ads agency back when things were scaling up. However, because they wanted to take things in-house and try a different approach, they ended up just doing exactly that, and that's where things really start to kind of trickle down in terms of the overall ROAS, profitability, etc. But in the last 30 days, that's where this brand stands. This other brand is currently a brand that we're working with under my Google Ads agency or marketing. It's a brand which is roughly $230,000 USD per month in revenue, and the return on ad spend is absolutely phenomenal. If you look right here, the ROAS overall has been a 10.65x. So very big difference between both brands in terms of both profitability and the revenue. And the beautiful thing about this brand is, even though it's more on the newer side, it hasn't been running as long as the other brand has, because this was started in 2023. Things have been on the upward trend a lot more for this brand than what it has been for this other brand. So what is really the main difference? Why can these two brands, which are in very similar niches to each other, have such differing results? Well, the answer is a little bit deeper than just what the strategies are implemented right here. First and foremost, this brand, looking at the strategy side of things on the product feed level, this brand really didn't have too much leeway to try different things. Even back when we used to work with them, they wanted to take a very specific approach for their industry because they didn't have the ability to go out and have photographers and just photography in general get done for their product. As a result, they ended up using supplier provided photos, which essentially ended up causing them to blend in with a lot of their competitors. So as you can see, even though their CTRs are on the fairly higher end of above 1%, the unfortunate thing is most of these products look exactly the same as what the competition is selling. And even if it's a completely different product, different style, different material made, etc., the unfortunate thing is it's not standing out enough. And that's where things go wrong with Google Ads. Whereas this brand right here, from the start, they had the ability to not only do interesting things for their photos, but also use AI software, Canva, etc. to make things better because they had internal team members taking care of those things. And that's essentially what ended up really helping this brand. If you look right here, the CTRs, they're on a much lower end for some of these products than what you see over there. But the products that are doing well have very good CTRs, especially those products with greater levels of conversions. I mean, 2.73%. 5.11%, so on and so forth. So these click-through rates just tell you that the audience is interacting at a much greater level for these products under this brand versus the other brand. That's where the other brand initially went wrong. Going on over to the campaign side of things, first and foremost, this is the second issue that this brand is facing, hence why they're struggling to scale. Overall, they have a bunch of different campaigns running at this point of time. If we look at the enabled ones, they have a total of 19 different campaigns. Now, if you're one of my OG followers, you know that one of the worst things you can do for your brand is to launch a bunch of stuff and just hope it works. Because all this does is, number one, it makes your strategy way too fancy and way too overdone when you're not even at that level of scale. And number two, this fancy approach causes a lot of internal overlap. I mean, that's the main reason why some of these commits barely spend 3 pounds or 5 pounds or 15 pounds overall in the last 30 days. That's because they're just not able to scale further. They don't have the ability to scale further because things are just overlapping with each other. One campaign is overlapping with the other one, it's bidding against the other one. And this is causing something called internal bidding, where essentially you drive your own CPCs up, which is not a good situation to be in. Whereas this other brand, which is doing $250,000 roughly and more per month in revenue, has even less than a quarter of the campaigns that the other brand is running. If we look at the Enable, we only have 4 campaigns running and it's able to do 200,000 and above USD per month in revenue. So the key here, what you want to understand is simplicity is king. It doesn't matter if you're selling to one country or multiple countries like both of these brands. What matters is you're keeping the approaches simple and you're not overlapping it with a bunch of unnecessary things. The main reason why we've been able to stick to this 4 campaign approach and do extremely well here is because we're implementing something called the 80-20 rule, where 80% of our efforts, our budgets, etc., go on cold traffic campaigns. As you can see right here, these 2 campaigns at the top, one is for the US, one is an international based PMAC, but these 2 get 80% of our budget, whereas 20% goes towards these retargeting and just bottom of the funnel based traffic approaches. That's essentially what's driving this brand forward. And because it's so kind of balanced, what happens is now Google is able to put more of its efforts and focus on the keywords, which are more for cold traffic, which are more for getting more scale in long term, and then put a little bit less effort on the branded and retargeting side of things, but at the same time still get that momentum and still get those keywords needed to understand what works for the brand versus what doesn't. Whereas for this is almost like 70% retargeting with a lot of quote brand protection campaigns. That's what these campaigns are getting basically called, but the reality is they're branded search campaigns run by one of our competitor agencies. But that's why it's so important for you to know exactly who you're working with and if they're doing a good job for you or not, because otherwise you can end up completely destroying your results for your own brand, like the results ended up getting destroyed right over here. I mean, if we look at just the cold traffic campaigns, because majority of these search campaigns are for retargeting purposes, if we go on over to campaign type, for instance, and we look at shopping and PMAX, we can see shopping and PMAX is barely driving any revenue of this. Even the standard shopping campaigns are based around branded keywords. So if we just undo the shopping side of things and only look at PMAX, which out of all of these PMAXs, this is going for cold traffic only. Roughly $4,300 came in the last 30 days from cold traffic, whereas the rest basically did not come from cold traffic. It was a lot of retargeting, around $14,000 to $15,000 in revenue. So that's not a very good situation to be in, because the cold traffic ROAS is barely a 1.79x. So the key you want to understand the difference between these 2 brands is, number 1, foundation is key. The more you focus on your foundation, the product feed, the fundamental, the easier it will be for you to scale your brand long term. And when you combine that with a simplistic campaign approach, which basically goes after a segregated approach which your brand needs, that's when you can truly scale to the next level with Google Ads. But if you run a brand doing 50,000 or more per month in revenue, you need extra help scaling to the next level with Google Ads and big ads. Go on to my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me, and let's see if we can potentially work together and make that happen.